Hello all, Jamaican here. And the one thing I really love about the EPC is the fact that it's so easy to open. You know, this is easy to learn, easy to play, easy to use. I think that's the last one. But it's also easy to open, I guess. So it's a quadruple E, if you will. Anyway, each of the screws are basically require a simple but yet a small Phillips head screwdriver. Once you get that, you're pretty much set. Move some of this stuff off my table. And you can open up this thing without any of those special screws that you usually see in these types of laptops, like the Torx or whatever. But as you can see, I have the machine open here. But the thing I want to show you, because you're going to look on on YouTube, and somebody actually has a video on how to open it up to this point, and take out the motherboard and whatnot. But I want to show you how to remove the screen, because nobody has a video about that. And that one was a little bit confusing and painful for me to know, so I'll zoom in a little bit. So each of the sides have a small screw hole. They usually covered, these two here are covered by these small stickers, but these are covered by rubber stoppers. I lost like 3 rubber stoppers, so I just decided to keep them open. Once you get these all off, the thing you have to do is go to the side. It's going to be kind of hard to show you this. Let's see if I can do this here. Go to the side of the case. Let's start over here. And you just slide your finger across. See if you can see that. You just slide your finger across and it just opens up. And you do that on this side too. Move this over. Alright, so I'll continue showing you from this angle how to take this thing apart. So you just slide your finger, really, your nail, if you have any, just through the cracks here, and they have a whole bunch of clips on each side. This side too. Move this over. I don't know if you can see that. You just again slide your finger. It's kind of hard to do this on camera and manage to show you. Okay, so that's all off now. Now there's also clips on the bottom here. You can see that. So you have to kind of get around that, right, this corner across, and actually pull the screen all the way back. I'm going to actually hold the camera while I do this. Let me see if I can just hold it, and then pull the screen back a little bit, all the way back, and then just kind of reach in and take off all these points, and it comes right off. And then that's about that. And so that down. Now you want to make sure to pull the screen back up, because this thing will lean back and drop, and you don't want that to happen. Put that over. Get the okay, now the screen is off. So now I'm going to show you actually my mod that I did for my E. So as you can see, my speaker is moved up. That's the original location of the speaker. It should be like right there. I had to move it up because of this. This controller board is large, at least in terms of for the real estate area. It is large, and so it took up a lot of space. And I was lucky enough to actually be able to stretch out the speaker as far as it could, because this is like the furthest the speaker could reach. I mean, I was actually considering putting this under the board, and it was causing a huge bulge. I was even considering finding a way how to remove the speaker and put it somewhere else, but I knew that would make the whole sound off balance, and I didn't want that to happen. So I was actually able to stretch the cord out by untwisting it a little bit and stretching it up, and so it's reaching like its limit. I don't know, it's like can't even see the cable because it's stretching straight through this to be here. So as you can see, my touchscreen was never made to be in this device because of the fact that the ribbon cable is actually on the top, and it's like barely staying inside. I'm actually using this camera cable to hold the ribbon cable down. That way it doesn't keep popping out and getting pinched by the top here, because that was causing my touchscreen to stop working, I think, as well as the fact that my cables down here were being pinched by the hinge cover, the casing of the hinge, which caused my controller board to be unrecognized by the computer. And I've actually connected it to one of the main ports here. I soldered it down because I taping it down is not a good idea. I soldered them directly to the USB port here, and I just don't use it anymore. I want to solder it to a USB point on the board, but I have a 25-watt soldering iron. Alright, so I have a 25-watt soldering iron, which looks like this here. If I were to show you this compared to like some of the points on the board, some of the USB ports on the board, points on the board, are about as small as those things on there. And if you look at the tip here to that there, it's not going to work. And I would not even attempt to try to solder anything that small with this needle, even though this actually I've sharpened it, but it's not even sharp enough to do such a thing. Now if you look at the USB connections, it actually works out really nicely because it's nice fit and it's spaced out, so I was able to do it luckily. But that's a temporary thing. I'm going to make sure to get a 12-watt soldering iron soon and do it properly. Yeah, but other than that, I just wanted to show you really just my mod. The webcam is still there, even though the webcam is like barely above the touchscreen's layer here, which is amazing because I thought it was going to actually cover it, which it almost did initially, but then I realigned the touchscreen to fit the screen, and it does a good job. Other than that, though, the wiring there, I have the wiring there, and it's there. So, that's that. Show you a side profile there. You can see it's barely. Even that speaker is like a little pushed out, but it's barely there. The slightest bulge would make this thing stick out. So, and I made some of these soldering connections really fine too, which is a really good thing. Oops, on my part too. So it's barely fitting. And I just love the fact that I was able to keep the speaker, because some people weren't able to do this mod without cutting the speaker off, or getting rid of the webcam. So I definitely like that. I got all that in there. Yeah, the eBayer told me that this screen is 1.5 millimeters thick, or thin, whichever way you want to say it. So, and this thing fits just fine. It does create a slight bulge, and I'll be showing you that like right now. Like, it's all back together. Yeah, so it does create a slight bulge, and I'll show you that right there. As you can see, like the little bezel bends over a little bit, while on this side it's like leaning right against the screen. It's like a slight bend out too. And actually the biggest bulge you can see is actually here, where this thing is actually out a little bit. But other than that, it's like, and even the bottom kind of has one too, but you really can't tell. If I were to point this out to you, then you'd notice, but other than that, it looks great. Before, this thing was really bending, and you could see it. Like, as soon as I opened the laptop, you saw it, and if I closed the laptop, you saw the laptop kind of slanting. But this thing actually works great now. And I had problems with the touchscreen where it would turn off when I screwed like one side. But the solution to that was that these cables, being that mine are so thick, I had to loosen them up because I taped them together. And so they were like a big knot in the hinge here, and so untaping them helped that problem. And make sure if you ever solder these connections to put some black tape over them, so that this metal casing here doesn't connect with them and cause a short in your whole motherboard or something. One thing I forgot to mention, if you get a touchscreen for this thing, make sure you tighten the ends, but don't tighten these two screws. It's common sense, but just word to the wise, I guess, because the fact that these two screws here, especially the longer type touchscreens like mine, the touchscreen I think ends like right below the webcam. and so it causes this thing to bulge up a lot. So if you tighten this, it's either going to crack the casing or damage the touchscreen. So what I like to do for these two screws here is to barely get some light in here. There we go. So just barely tighten it so that there's like a little bit of resistance, but don't tighten it too hard. So you know, so then that one's done. And then you do the next one. Same thing. You just tighten it until you feel resistance, and then that's about that. So these two now are screwed in, but they're not tight.